When I first got into real estate, I was all in on Facebook leads. I did a lot of lead generation. I did a lot of lead follow-up. I was basically the Facebook guy here in my market. I was doing a ton of business on Facebook, but I actually realized some things about Facebook that not a lot of other agents realize. In this video, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons to using Facebook for your real estate business and whether or not you should go all in on this yourself or perhaps look at some other platforms or just another source of business overall. So like I said, guys, when I first got into real estate, I was working a ton of Facebook leads. At first, I started out on a team who was generating these leads for us. They would click on an ad, they would land on our website and start looking at houses, and then we'd collect their information, usually a name, phone number, and email, and then we'd reach out to them and say, hey, we saw you were on our website looking at some houses for sale. We'd love to show you one of them. What can we do for you, right? That's kind of the initial pitch that it comes to when you're working with Facebook leads. Now, early on, this worked really well because I was a young agent. I had a lot of time, but not a lot of money, and I was just working these leads as hard as I could to try and drum up some business. Now, I did get some business out of this. I worked Facebook leads for probably about 4 years in total. For the first year or so, it was on that team, and then after that, I started generating my own leads on Facebook, both paid leads and free leads, but that's a story that we're going to get to here in just a second. And for the first 4 years of my career, I was using these Facebook leads to drum up business. That first year, I probably only sold about $15,000 worth of real estate. That was my commission income for my first full year being in real estate. Now, that's not very good, right? It's kind of hard to make a living off of that. Then I actually got to the point where I started closing more business. I started getting more leads, and I was able to effectively position myself to get business from these people who were logging in. And eventually I built myself up to the point in my career where I was closing more and more deals off of these Facebook leads. The cool thing about Facebook leads is they're generally pretty easy to generate, but then they take a lot of work to follow up with these particular leads. This is one of the downfalls to working with Facebook leads. So let's talk about some of the pros first. Obviously, Facebook is a massive platform. There's a lot of people on there. Almost every single person out there, it seems like they're kind of on Facebook. At least a lot of people are, right? I'd say, I don't know, 70, 80% of people have some type of profile on Facebook and check it on a somewhat regular basis. So Facebook is a great way to stay in touch with your sphere, stay in touch with your database, and just generally stay in touch with people and what they're doing. If you really go all in, you post some things to Facebook, you post to your page, you post to a group, or you're even reaching out to people about what they're posting, this can be a great way to keep in touch with people and network and hopefully get some business from it. But I also want to talk about the paid side of Facebook. You can pay Facebook to run ads on their platform, like we just talked about, that will get people to your website where you can then collect their information. This is a great way to generate leads, especially early on in your career, because it's relatively easy and relatively cheap. This is something you can do to get started, but you do have to know that there's some pitfalls that come along with it. Before we point out those pitfalls, let's talk about a couple more positives when it comes to Facebook leads. One of the other awesome things about working with Facebook leads is it's relatively easy to get these people to become your clients. Yes, it does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of phone calls and a lot of messages to be able to kind of get them to meet with you in the first place. But once you've got them, you are generally in a position where you can be the real estate agent for their needs and help them buy a home. I love working with buyers because it gives you the opportunity to really build a relationship with those people because you're going out and showing them homes numerous times throughout the process. This gives you the opportunity to really build a strong relationship and get to know each other a little bit better. Now, let's talk about some of the negatives to running Facebook ads, and then we'll talk a little bit about whether or not I think you should jump into Facebook or consider going all in on some other type of lead generation source. Some of the negatives to working Facebook leads is it takes a lot of time. I can tell you I spent probably 1,000, maybe 2,000 hours, maybe even more over the past, those first 4 years when I was working these Facebook leads. I probably spent at least a couple thousand hours making phone calls, sending text messages, sending emails, looking at houses for people, just trying to satisfy them and what they're looking for to try and hopefully get that appointment with them so we could finally meet face to face, which is such an important part of the process. Unfortunately, this is not very scalable. This is not a process where you can go in and put in 3 hours worth of work and maybe get 10 hours worth of results back, right? When you're making phone calls like this, you work for 3 hours, you may or may not get some results during those 3 hours, but once you're done, that stops working for you. So this is one of the downfalls to working with Facebook leads. In addition to that, I found that the lead quality was unfortunately pretty low. A lot of the people who are searching on Facebook and looking at these houses don't always have a down payment, they don't have the best credit, they don't have the highest income. The lead quality just wasn't as good as we would like to see in the real estate business. When you get into real estate, you figure out, hey, networking and getting in touch with people is the best way to get business. And generally speaking, if you get in front of people who have more income, a higher wealth, whatever, they're looking for more expensive homes, those deals are actually going to be easier. So working with the Facebook leads, you're kind of putting yourself yourself at a disadvantage, because the reality is most of those people who are going to become your leads are not going to be in the best of positions. Most people who do have a higher income or maybe already own a home, they've already got an agent, they already know somebody down the street, and it's pretty hard to break into that arena of like, hey, I just met you, you signed up on my website, but let's meet up and let's buy a house together, right? That's not really a likely scenario. Yes, it does happen, but it's very difficult to make that conversion. The other thing that kind of sucks about Facebook is it can cost you a lot of money to generate those leads. Although, yes, I did say it's easy and relatively cheap to generate leads, when you actually convert the cost of those leads into what it costs you to get from a lead to a closing, it adds up pretty quickly. When I was doing this pretty heavily about 3 to 4 years ago, I was spending around $600 to $800 in advertising spend in order to get a deal. Now I was spending $600 to $800 plus putting in a ton of my time for those people to filter through them and really find the good leads. Now it's closer to $1,000 to $2,000 in Facebook ads because it's become so competitive and expensive to generate these leads. It costs a lot more in order to get those leads through. So now you're not only spending more, but you're also spending a lot of your time to try and drum up this business. So with all that said, guys, we've covered a couple different pros and cons to working with Facebook leads. And you might be asking yourself, well, hey, I'm a new agent, or I'm an agent who maybe doesn't have a ton of business right now. What should I do in order to drum up some business? Well, Facebook can be an avenue for you to get some leads, but I don't know that it's the best source out there right now. I'm obviously very heavy into YouTube right now, and that's where 100% of my business comes from. That's not friends or family or past clients or anything like that. 100% of my lead generation is on YouTube. The things I love about YouTube is it's scalable, it's easy, it's a blue ocean. There's only a couple other people in my market who are doing this, and I get people reaching out to me who are very high quality and they want to work with me. So that's obviously where my bias is. I'm very heavy into YouTube, and I think it's the absolute best platform you can be on right now. If you're thinking about what other platforms you can get on, YouTube is definitely one that you should consider. And on that note, if you want to get more information about how to use YouTube in your business, check out the description box below or shoot me an email. You'll find my email in the description below. And let's have a chat about the type of business you actually want to create and how I can help you do that. So to wrap up this video, talking about Facebook and whether it's right or not for you and how to use Facebook to get more leads, I think Facebook is a very powerful platform if you're posting on there consistently and you get followers on there, and you also keep in touch with friends and family who are in your neighborhood or just people you know, right? Your sphere of influence. If you keep in touch with those people by commenting on their posts or reaching out to them privately and saying, hey, that looked like an awesome time you had last week at the fair, or whatever it might be, that stuff's going to be really helpful for you, and it can really help deepen those relationships that you have. So for me, I'm not the type of person who's going to go all in on Facebook. I've been there, done that, and I've just got so tired of it. And honestly, I think for most people, I'd probably say you should stay away from it because you're going to be spinning your wheels, spending a lot of time and money to get those leads. And I think honestly, there's better lead sources out there. So all that said, guys, I hope this video is helpful for you. If it was, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more real estate agent specific videos, and we'll catch you in the next one.